On today's show, we're going to talk about Dean Wade. We're going to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the Cavs bench. And we're going to talk about Cavs-Celtics, a primetime top 4 Eastern Conference showdown. That's all coming up today on your March 1st, can't believe it's already March, episode of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music heard on the way and is from our friends at Astro Radio, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That is the official sportsbook of Locked On. I'm Chris Manning, Fear the Sword, Diamond UPROXX, Cleveland Magazine, the Just Basketball Show, a bunch of things. Work probably too much. That man over there is Evan Dammarell, the proprietor of Down Euclid. He is coming through. His camera is looking incredible. If you're not subscribed on our YouTube channel, you don't get to see it, and that frankly... is a shame for you. You're missing out.
May the March be with you all, by the way. Just saying. It's that time of year.
Are you a Star Trek guy?
Okay. I'm not either.
Do I seem like a Star Trek guy?
Look, man, you threw it up. You talk.
Listen, I know what the Klingon greeting is.
I know,
every
but
kid in
the fact
school
that you
did that.
it, I was like, okay, is Evan about to be
this.
like, I've just been like crushing Picard on Paramount Plus, and I'm like, okay, good for you.
I heard that show's dreadful, so I'm good. I've been told by folks I'd like the Next Generation, but you know what I do like, Chris? Talking about Dean Wade.
Dean Wade. Okay, so Dean Wade is the backup big in the Cavs top 8 rotation. It seems like that is the lineups. That is the look we saw the other night when the Cavs go 8 deep, kept a pretty tight rotation. You mentioned this on the other show, and it's been kind of a Cavs Twitterati kind of thing. In that, like, there have been like games where he played like 10 minutes, didn't play the second half. Like, what was kind of going on there? This felt a much more like rigid, I'm going to play, let these guys play, get their minutes kind of thing from JB Bickerstaff. This, Evan, makes a lot of sense to me that this is where his role is. We're in a world where where Kevin Love is in Miami. This is like the backup big they have on the roster right now, and they signed him to this extension. This was coming. Maybe the Love leaving and not playing well accelerated it, but the position that Dean is in now, this is it feels like the plan for him is to be this guy based on the extension they gave him and based on his skill set and what I think they think of him.
Yeah, and to your point, we'll see where the backup big thing goes, just because we're recording this on Tuesday evening, or Monday evening, rather, excuse me, and ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski reported that the Detroit Pistons and New Orleans Noel have agreed to a buyout agreement, and Noel is probably clearing a path to sign the playoff contender. Maybe Cleveland signs him just as like that emergency big.
But does he replace Dean? I would say no.
No, he doesn't replace Dean, but I think it just gives you a healthier option over Robin Lopez, and maybe like that just completely puts the nail in the coffin of Jetty Osmond's minutes in the rotation too, and you have Noel be your 9th man. But that's neither here nor there. Focusing on Wade just now, yeah, in theory, he is supposed to be your Kevin Love replacement. I think if you're the Cavs, he doesn't exactly give you what Love gives you as like a very elite 3-point shooter and like a rebounder in that aspect, but like Wade can give you a little bit of that, but also he has a lot of lateral quickness. He's very comfortable defending 3s, 4s, and 5s. Maybe not so super comfortable defending 5s, but he's learning how to defend 3s and 4s. I think he was given a clear homework assignment heading into last offseason. Same for Lamar Stevens of like, listen, we need you much more comfortable defending wings and in space and things like that. I think Wade has looked good, to his credit at times for that, but he dealt with the knee injury coming into the season with the meniscus tear, and then he had the injury that sidelined him for a little bit with the shoulder issues, and like he's still wearing like a tension shirt, I think is the right term for it, like when he's trying to get fully comfortable back out there. So maybe he's still not 100%. But again, like Dean Wade is he's cost controlled as well, just because he's on that extension now option for depth for you if you're Cleveland. And again, like he's not going to like suddenly be your 6th man or 7th man next year, but for now, like he'll fit in nicely as like your 7th, 8th man, and he'll remain that 7th, 8th man as maybe as the Cavs age out some of their bench guys and bring in younger depth options, or maybe they kind of fine tune things on the back end of things as well. But for what it's worth, like Wade is just hard for me to fully judge because I just don't think he's fully healthy. Like I asked JB Bickerstaff full stop, like, hey, is everything okay with Dean? He's like, yeah, he's fine. I'm like, okay, well, he's played less than 10 minutes, 5 games in a row prior to the Raptors game, of course. And Bickerstaff said that was more of just like a rotation thing, and he kind of played his hand a little bit the night against the Raptors where he said like, hey, we want to lean more on our bigs. So maybe that's why you saw Jetty Osmond not get a single minute, but you saw a lot of Dean Wade out there with like Evan Mobley and Jared Allen at times too. And it's interesting, just like the fluidity of the situation. Because again, you benched Kevin Love to get Dean Wade those minutes. That's what Bickerstaff said on the record. And now you're just kind of figuring out the fine tune process and just how he fits. And I think there are ways he can fit. Like, again, I will bang my fist on my desk if I have to, but he's really functional as like a spread pick and roll guy, whether that's towards the basket or flaring out to the perimeter with like Donovan Mitchell, like, or even Darius Garland. And then Karis LeVert functions well with that too. Like, there's ways to make Wade function and work well, but again, I wonder if he's fully healthy still, but for now, he in theory gives you what you want, and he's also on a cheap cost controlled contract. And so there's not like a huge rush to like scramble to replace him this time next year, or sorry, this summer rather.
Yeah. Or when you get to the summer rather, because the February might be summer. But so
it could be with how this weather's been lately, man.
True. Or March, or this is a March 1st episode. But 40% of catch and shoot threes this year. That's a really good number. That thing has worked. His overall 3-point rate is good. I mean, I come away watching him, and this was like very, I think, true the other night, even in a game the Cavs won pretty handily against Toronto. I think Dean Wade should shoot more. Like, there are times where he gets the ball and he is making a pass that I understand that his shot isn't perfect, and that like he maybe sees like Donovan Mitchell like open and can just give him the ball or whatever. But I think sometimes like chasing perfect is the enemy of like good, and like just take the shot that is open to you. And like he has to be a guy that if he's going to play, he has to step into that Kevin Love role, which is like, okay, a shot has come my way and it's open. I'm going to take it with confidence. And every time it comes my way, I'm going to let that fly. He has to do that. He has to let him rip, Dean. Let the shots flow out of you, Dean. Like, let him go. He can be that 3-and-D kind of 3-4 combo. You know, he's going to get switched on in the playoffs. There's going to be moments where like we're going to see him get tested, and we're going to find out a little more about what his skills actually are, I think, when we get into April and maybe into May. But a big part of this is going to be, Dean, you can shoot. You're nearly 40% on catch and shoot threes this year. You're not a plus shooter, I think, ultimately, but like you're a good shooter. Let those shots fly when you get them. You're going to get open looks. You're going to have those opportunities. The Cavs absolutely need him to take those shots. When he, like, if I'm Bickerstaff, if I'm that coaching staff, like, I don't want, like, one of the balls he gave back to Donovan Mitchell tonight resulted in Donovan Mitchell, like, taking a contested corner three and, like, on a night where he was awesome, hitting the side of the backboard because Dean Wade passed it open. Look at the top. Like, he just has to shoot. He just has to let him fly.
Yeah, he does have to let him shoot. He does have to let him fly. I wonder if it's part of him trying to find a way to fit in now with this Cavs team that's a little bit more healthy. I mean, I don't think they're fully 100%. No team's fully 100% right now, but it's a product of that. And I just think maybe it's just he isn't comfortable taking those shots. Maybe he's just like, oh, I'd rather pass it to Donovan or Darius because they can get a cleaner look or something easier at the basket.
He kind of needs to get comfortable if he's not, I think, is where we end up here.
Yeah, that's where we need to end up at. Like, he needs to get comfortable doing it, but it's the psychology aspect of the game too. Like, you can't like just tell someone to do something and then like fully expect them to do it. Because like in the heat of the moment, it's really hard to adapt at times too. I don't know. I think Dean Wade makes a ton of sense for this Cavs team. I totally understand why the Cavs signed him to an extension. This is a win if you're honestly looking at the player development side of things, especially through the G League if you're the Cavs too. But there's just a weird figuring out process still, and maybe it's just the lack of offensive creativity at times, or the fact that like sometimes the Cavs become very reliant on Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland bailing one of them out, that they can't let the other guys kind of function or flourish at all. And Dean Wade might be one of those casualties of it too. But again, I do wonder if he's just not fully healthy either. Like, that's the other thing for me, is like if he's not 100% out there, it makes a little bit more sense and adds a little bit more context to why maybe he's not taking the shots and rather just like passing off to another teammate and just trying to use whatever stamina and physical grit they have in his possession just to focus on the defensive side of the ball instead.
Yeah, look, and we don't know if he's unhealthy, but if he's playing and all of that, I think we have to just kind of assume like to some degree that he is. Like, I think there's no indication that to me, that he would necessarily like that he isn't, I guess, like as healthy as he's going to be right now, or like isn't capable of playing. Like if that shoulder, I think, was hindering him from playing, that's kind of a serious thing. It kept him out for a little bit. Like I kind of just assume he's healthy, and
yeah, okay, that's fair.
Like I think in this case, I'm just going to take Bickerstaff at his word that like it is a rotation thing, because sometimes I think that is the case. Sometimes I think he's looking for other options, and it's like Dean is a guy you can like, okay, I'll try Lamar, I'll try Danny Green, like I'll try something else. He's the guy that might happen to in the rotation. That is kind of what I tend to think right now based on just the evidence in front of us. All right, let's go on a break. We're going to come back. We're going to get into bench strengths and bench weaknesses. But first, got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, the midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That is bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It is safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can then bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. You can bet first basket as well if that's your jam. Right now, they have a great Ringer NBA boost where you can get better odds on this bet. 2 of Boston, Milwaukee, Denver, Phoenix, and the Clippers to make the finals. That is, I think, really good. You get that at plus money. That's potentially some a good wager there. That's a great bet to look at in my mind. And they'll have a lineup for Cavs-Celtics as well once we get to that. Damn, as you're listening to this, you can go on the FanDuel app right now and get a line for Cavs-Celtics. Cavs will probably be underdogs. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. Don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That is FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Evan, tell me what we're going to try to get through this in, a tight 10 here. I have some weaknesses. I have some strengths kind of in my head. I have a couple in our outline. Give me a Cavs bench strength. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first. That's a fair question, because I'm just like, what is their biggest strength?
I think I would feel good about...
As you see me staring off into space, thinking, like, I actually am genuinely thinking about this. Go ahead.
Okay. I would trust all of Wade, LeVert, and Rubio to at least battle to hold up defensively. I would trust those guys to put in the work, to move your feet, to not be like a liability. I think there are some like riskier options down the line. Like Jetty is just, I think, maybe going to end up being out of the rotation just because there's no defensive trust in there. That's where I think that kind of ends up. That's where it feels like we're ending up with Jetty, which is like a very like on brand thing. There's just a lot of variant with Jetty that is you're not going to get with some of the other guys. That to me is what I feel like. I think LeVert, he's not like a good defender. I don't think you're going to like be comfortable with him defending.
That's why some folks might have heard me go in the background when we said LeVert.
But if you watch the way he's played all year, you watch at least the effort he has put in on that end of the floor and his willingness to do some of that. I feel like at least he's going to compete and not just like not move his feet and be totally like he might get cooked. That might happen, but I feel like at least like the effort is going to be there with him. Rubio plays really big. The quickness isn't maybe totally where it was, but like it's still going to be a trustworthy defender. I think Dean can handle some of the drives. He had a really nice defensive possession against Scotty Barnes the other night where he just, Scotty Barnes is like a very physical driver and Dean just kind of took that on, absorbed it, forced a missed shot. Those three guys at the very least, some offensive concerns, obviously. I think that is like maybe the biggest concern is that like, I don't know where the bench punch kind of comes from. But I think those three guys, you feel like those are three guys that are kind of low variance guys to some degree and are going to put in the effort on the defensive end.
I agree with you to an extent. I think I'd have to say I have more faith in Wade and Rubio at the end of the day defensively than I do
There's no
LeVert.
question that those two guys are in their own tier, but I think LeVert's body of work this year is like, he's at least battled in a way and like not been...
That's fair.
Like, he's been better defensively than Jetty, and I don't think that's like that's not a debate to me.
Say like that's not a high bar to clear at the end of the day, but
no, but like if you're picking nits on these top 8 and like that's your backup 3 option, then I think Karras maybe gets the edge in that sense.
So as you were talking, and I agree with you, like I to an extent, like Caris LeVert has his lumps defensively. That's again why I made that noise for those listening on audio or maybe watching on video with me thinking off in his face. But I think just in terms of a strength, they function well with what, and you can even lump Isaac Okoro into this group too, is just like the 4 guys that function well with the big 4. And there's a lot of versatility and a way you can go about this. Like you can plug in Wade at the 3, you can put him in at the 4. Heck, if you want to go super small, you can play him at the 5 at times and he'd be mixed success, but like there's ways he can work, and like that functions well with all of Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen.
I'd be surprised if we saw Wade in the 5 unless something just went really wrong.
I agree with you, but again, he's the backup big too. So like there might be situations where like teams force him into the 5 spot just defensively as well, like just the mismatches and things like that. And then ditto for Rubio, like you could do 3 guard lineups. You can let him be the predominant guard. You can let him be the off-ball guard, one of Mitchell or Garland. And then when it comes to LeVert, you've seen success with him paired next to Mitchell. You've seen success paired next to Garland. You've seen success with him paired next to both of them at times too, even though it's not the cleanest fit there. But like LeVert has his lumps, sure, but like offensively, like he's a very good pick and roll ball handler. Like he functions really well with Jared Allen, especially. I mean, yeah, there's that on-court chemistry they had at the Nets, but also like they're just very comfortable with each other out there because Allen's a good screen setter and very comfortable rolling and running to the rim. And LeVert's very good at getting Allen in very tight windows to just get those easy looks at the basket. So I think that's like one of their biggest strengths in terms of this bench unit is like the fluidity. And then Okoro as well. I just lumped him into this one, but like Okoro is clearly the starter of like the 4 role players playing alongside the 4 stars for the Cavs. And he functions really well as a connective piece, but also like does give you a little bit of fluidity, whether it's as a 2, as a 3, and has the ability to defend 4s if you asked him to, if it's like a stretchier 4 at times. But that's just part of the growth and maturation process too, as he gets more comfortable defending at that level. But if you like ask him on defense, like, hey, Isaac, we need to defend the best perimeter player, more often than not, Isaac Okoro is more than comfortable doing that. So like that's just kind of the strength of it. And maybe it's a bit of a cop out, including Okoro in this group, but he was a bench player up until maybe the last like 5-6 games ago. But
longer than that.
Regardless, he's been a bench player for the better part of the season. And now it's just like, yeah, they all function well with what the Cavs have. Yeah, they're all flawed individually, but for some reason, like they complement the Cavs and how they function. And more so, the Cavs can then just lean on their star power and have their role players maybe mess up some of the stuff that their stars may miss. Like, it's not like a perfect example, but like you think of like Avery Bradley covering for Isaiah Thomas defensively, and Isaiah Thomas just cooked offensively for the Celtics, and like saw something like that. It's obviously not apples to apples, but it's just like that kind of analogy where you have the guys who are literally willing to be the garbage men at times and kind of do all the dirty work, while the stars kind of get all the individual statistical accolades.
What I will also just say about LeVert is I think if you had to wager on one guy having just a game where he plays a chunk of minutes in a spot and it works well enough and he just scores like 25, it's him. If there's like a game in the right series where he's at the 3 and like it just works well enough and he defends well enough and he has like 25 and he makes a bunch of catch and shoot threes or something, that's the guy in this group. Rubio has not had that scoring pop that he did last year. That is not
correct.
Maybe Dean's not just going to have the volume of threes, even if he takes a good amount of them as far as his over shot profile. The volume is just not going to be there in the way like maybe it would have been for Kevin Love. That's one of the big differences, I think, in going to Dean over Kevin, is like you're getting some really positive other things, but the volume kind of variance there is a little bit different. Maybe that only happens kind of one game, and maybe they don't really have that traditional bench scorer if LeVert can't kind of consistently be that and find his spots that way. That speaks to maybe some of he doesn't totally feel like fully comfortable or feel in kind of what has gone on and what that kind of means. Evan, last bench question. Just give me a name. Give me the guy that isn't in the top 8 that we didn't see the other night, that if you felt like if they just end up in a series and they play really well for a couple games and it helps the Cavs win a series, who would that player be that steps up into just some spot minutes and makes a difference?
So we're talking guys that aren't LeVert.
No LeVert, no Rubio,
Wade.
no Wade, and not Okoro, who has started 34 of the 64 games he's played this year.
Okay, so more than 50%. You were correct. But so that gives you like Jetty Osman, Robin Lopez, Halu Neto. I guess Jetty Osman is the answer, I guess, just because he has more of that pop offensively. And maybe you just get Jetty at a peak moment where he's hitting threes and maybe not trying to do too much on offense. And he is being covered or somewhat passable on defense. Like that's a way for him to carve a path to be like that ninth man or maybe even bump Wade for that eighth man minutes at times as well, too. But it's Osman for the time being. Maybe it's Danny Green, but I just don't know if Danny fully physically there yet. Or heck, maybe it's a guy that they sign at the buyout market as they address that final roster spot.
I don't think a buyout guy unless it's like LeBron gets a buyout or something.
Like it's Stanley Johnson or it's even Will Barton who like has the ability to shoot 3-pointers in Barton. Like that gets you some minutes in the rotation, I'd say.
I don't know if anyone they signed is like gonna walk into minutes. I think is the thing. I think Stanley could be like a Dean Wade alternative that is kind of interesting. I was trying to like read up and see if there's anything on him. There's been like very little since he got bought out, whatever that means. If I was my answer would be Danny Green. I think Jetty's a very reasonable answer just because we've seen him like kickstart Cavalanches, like that has been a thing. But I might just be getting like old and being like, man, I love Danny Green. And like that guy has just like done it, knows what to do, is not going to be freaked out by the moment. Like, I don't know what he's going to be like physically, if he can move well enough, any of that stuff. But I think if anyone was going to do it and just show up, play good two-way basketball in the playoffs and like help you win a game on a night where like LeVert doesn't play well or Dean Wade's in foul trouble or Okoro has like an off night, I go Danny Green. But I think it's him or Jetty, and I don't think anyone else. Like, I don't think Robin Lopez, bless his heart, is going to come in and swing a playoff series for you or swing a game even. All right, we'll come back. We're going to look ahead to Cavs-Celtics. All right, last segment. Chris Manning, Evan Dammarell. Evan, Cavs are 2-0 for the year against Boston. Those wins were big. They were also a long time ago. They were very early in the season. This game feels bigger. It is later in the year. They are on the road in Boston on national television going against a team that many, including me, I think rightfully see it as a bigger title contender. This is awesome. This is one of the benefits if you're covering a team or if you're a fan out there listening. When the team you spend most of your time watching is playing in big games, this is when the regular season gets a little more weight to it. It gets a little more stakes. There have been some incredible games of late. I mean, the Boston was just in one against Philly last week. You had Denver, the Clippers the other night. Like, you're having big games. The Cavs are in an opportunity where this feels kind of like a big game, and that in itself
my brother
is
in Christ. Cool. You mentioned the Clippers, but you don't mention Clippers Kings.
Yeah, but like it was just like Kawhi and Jokic being peak at each other was incredible. But shout out to like Malik Monk just like destroying the Clippers. Shouts to light the freaking beam. Love the beam.
Yeah, I love the beam team. It's like one of my if it'll be a travesty if the Nike execs and Kings officials don't make their City Edition costume next year Beam Team themed. Like, it has just be neon everything and like a sell out
in perpetuity.
Like, much like the Salt Lake City red, yellow, blacks that the Jazz wore, like those need to be kept in perpetuity too. But alas, yeah, I'm excited for this game. I think I maybe made a face if you were watching at home, folks, but the Cavs last time they were on national TV didn't have a great time against the Sixers. So we'll see how this game goes. As Chris mentioned, they're 2-0 against the Celtics. The Celtics don't have many losses this year, and the Cavs own 2 of them. So like that's something worth noting too. Like maybe this is just the team that stylistically Boston, they have 17 losses this year, and Cleveland is 2 of them, and they are pretty much in the heat of things with the Milwaukee Bucks too for the top record in the Eastern Conference. So that is worth noting as well. But maybe Cleveland is a team that has Boston's number, but I think again this is another put up or shut up kind of opportunity for Cleveland just to kind of say, like, listen, yeah, we had a really good game against the Raptors, but we had a frustrating loss prior to that to the Atlanta Hawks where the Cavs looked nothing like themselves, or the Denver Nuggets where that was a case of too little too late, and maybe a few other things. And shout out to Slack in the background there, but
got a ping from the dime Slack that LeBron James is gonna miss some time, which is a bummer.
That's a bummer, but either way, like the last time the Cavs played the Celtics, was it that was the game when Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland just tore them apart in overtime. And then before that, it's Karis LeVert and Donovan Mitchell each scoring 41 apiece to kind of claw back into a game where the Cavs looked like they were going to lose and kind of win this one. And if you're Cleveland, these are the defending Eastern Conference champs. I'm trying to think who I even picked to represent the East. I think it was Boston. And I picked, and I feel very comfortable and validated in that pick now.
Kevin Durant sure really helped you out, brother.
Oh, it absolutely did.
I think I went Milwaukee and Denver.
Yeah, I mean, it also makes sense too. Like those are all the NBA's in a good place.
Me picking Denver just feels correct, honestly.
It's on brand. # on brand. But this should be a fun game if you're a pure basketball fan. But from the Cavs side of things, I just wonder what Cavs team is going to show up on the biggest stage. Are they going to kind of crumple a little bit when the pressure's on? Boston's playing very, very well as of late. Like they are, they've won 3 in a row, at least heading into this game. They are 24-7 at home as well. So like this is a hostile environment you're heading into. So like this is a pretty tough game for Cleveland. Also, a Cavs team that has 13-18 on the road this year. So like what Cavs team is going to show up? And I think again, like we talk about this a lot with the team, or we talk about this a lot on the show. Like they say it a lot where the Cavs sometimes struggle to respond to the first punch and they kind of stagger and then fight their way back when it's a little bit too little too late. I wonder if the Cavs are willing to land the first punch and then just keep on hitting the Celtics, because Boston isn't going to go away and they're really freaking good, especially on defense. Like this is going to be a very fun and fascinating matchup stylistically across the board.
Yeah, like the other night you saw Jason Tatum was like 1 of 6 from 3 until he makes 2 big ones late, and they beat Philly, who just got like a monster game from Embiid. Like that team is going to be around unless you absolutely put them away. Tatum did this very similar, hit a great, amazing 2-way sequence against Cleveland that put that second one into overtime earlier in the season. That was one of, I think, maybe my favorite game I've watched in person at Rocket Mortgage this year. A couple indicators I would say for this game. Number one, in like a schematic sense, Mobley and Allen versus Time Lord, who's back now and wasn't available for those games, and Horford. That's such a great frontcourt matchup. Mobley being aggressive and willing to challenge those guys will be, I think, a really big indicator of some things for the Cavs offense. When he's aggressive, they're better. And if he's aggressive against them in the same way, maybe or at least in the same intensity, even with not the same shot attempts that he was against Denver, that's a really encouraging sign of Mobley's confidence in where he's at on the offensive end. These teams also, Evan, over the last month have both been really good, and that makes this fun. According to Clean of the Glass, the Cavs were second in net rating as we're for the month of February, plus 12.7 per 100 possessions. Only Milwaukee was better at plus 13.5. Cavs were first in offense in February, offensive rating of 123.3, fourth in defense. Weirdly, 26 in expected win differential over that month. So based on like their net rating, how many games did they win? They did not win as many games as you would have expected for a team with that net rating. Boston over that stretch, 4th in net rating, 5th in offense, and 10th in defense. These are 2 good teams that, if you look at the numbers, even with the Cavs having that little weird 3-game losing streak, they've played really well the last month. This feels like a big game, and I this is a test. This is absolutely one of those games where I think we will have, unless just something is weird and like we have to write it off, like. But it is not set up to be weird in the way it was against like Atlanta, where like the scheduling was weird. You had the weird travel, like that was like, and the Hawks got the bump. There obviously could be weirdness that can happen. Yeah. But going in, there's nothing to suggest that this game isn't something that we should look at the results and say, seriously, the Cavs will have 2 days off. As we record this, the Boston is going to play New York. We will not know the result of that game or injuries, so maybe that changes some things on Boston's end. But these are 2 teams that are neither's on the back-to-back. It's national TV. Both playing really well the last month. This is what you want. This is what you want to be talking about and covering and watching if you're a fan when we get into March.
Absolutely. And to circle back to an episode we had with Martin Rickman, like if the Cavs lose this game, it's not the end of the world. As long as they continue to take care of business against the bad teams, i.e. like Toronto, or like when they have Detroit maybe down the line, I don't think they play the Pistons, or if they play the Pistons again, but like a team like that.
2 days off after Boston and get Detroit at home. You got to smack Detroit.
That's right. You got to smack Detroit. So
just got to, like the last Pistons game was one of the most like listful, like sad basketball games I have watched in a long time in person. That Pistons team was horrendous. You got to just like beat them by 20 and like have an easy night of work. You have to.
Oh, absolutely. And you just handle business against the bad teams. You try and fight and do your best against the good teams, and you sneak into the playoffs as either the 3rd seed or the 4th seed. And again, I keep saying again, like the game upcoming against Philly is going to be one of the biggest ones for the Cavs this season, just because like that'll probably end up being the tiebreaker between both squads. But if you're able to get an extra win against Boston between now and then and maybe make it a little less tight and a little less contentious between the 3rd and the 4th seed, you always go for it. But I think you are going to get a good version of the Cavs. It's just, when are we going to see them? Is it going to be right out the game or out of the gates, or is it going to be when JP Bickerstaff tears them a new one at halftime and then they come out swinging in the 3rd quarter? But again, it's too little too late. So I'm curious to see what will happen. Like you said, unless something really weird happens, it's going to be a fun basketball game across the board. And hopefully the Cavs can go 3-0 against the Celtics. Like, again, they haven't lost a lot this year. They hardly lose at home, and Cleveland could now have 2 wins Boston under their belt too. So like that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and tiebreaker maybe doesn't happen. There's a gap between these teams, but like, hey, you'd win the season series and have a tiebreaker against Boston if you win this one, or win the 4th game in the series, which is next week when the Cavs have Boston at home and then Miami twice, which is really fun stuff. Like the Pistons game is like the palate cleanser. It's like the ginger when you get sushi between like the games against
Something
good
like
teams.
that.
Yeah. Let's end there. I'm Chris Manning. That's Evan Dammarell. Thanks again to Jake Stevens for producing. Thanks again to Astra Radio for the tunes. Thanks again to FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Locked On, for sponsoring today's show. If you want a great second listen today, check out Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA. That is available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Have a great day, everyone. We'll talk to you tomorrow after Cavs-Celtics.